So, I've made fun of Vaush's AQUA argument before when he was debating Dr. Thomas Bogardus, known as the AQUA professor now. Basically, they were talking about definitions and how that relates to the what is a woman debate when Vaush made this beauty of an argument.
Maybe we could agree that water is H2O.
This isn't true.
That water has not always been H2O?
Yeah, all you have to do is cross the Mexican border. And over there, it's aqua. That's H2O, not water.
Aqua means water. Aqua is water.
It's a different term.
Actually, it's agua. It's not aqua.
After I put out that video, there was major cope from Vaush fans. They just couldn't accept that his argument was stupid. And neither could Vaush, because he put out this video where he refines the agua argument. But why does it need refining? It was such an impregnable argument in the first place. Mexicans do call water agua. In fact, a lot of the words that they use in Mexico are different from our own. It's as if we speak a completely different language. So let's address the refining of this flawless argument. But essentially, this video is just cope. Vaush is just in denial that he said something stupid and is trying his best to make a stupid argument more eloquent.
Which argument? The agua, when I aguad all over his face. What argument? The trans water? Okay, but it's like a better trans water argument, okay? Here's the argument now, as I understand it, okay? So, transphobes often argue on the idea that woman is like an innate, set-in-stone concept referring to like gametes or something, because they can't say like it's when you have like tits or pussy, because you can grow tits or pussy now, you can do magic, whatever. It's like gametes and chromosomes or whatever, like an innate thing.
Vaush is trying to imply that the definition is amorphous. Using genitals to define sex is a pretty good indicator, but as you can see here, the fundamental distinction is gametes. The genital definition is very useful for everyday life, but it's not the fundamental distinction.
And then, so naturally, my argument is like, okay, well, what if there's more social utility to including people who are like Blair White into woman? Like,
this is the interesting argument at hand. I think biological definitions are a lot more useful because they give you a lot more information. They're based in reality and are a lot more accurate.
Okay, so if people who are totally pass as a woman can be considered a woman, then maybe like, what about here? What about here? And then you get people to the total like arbitrarity of the concept, right?
Except it's not an arbitrary definition. And neither is aqua or agua or whatever you call it.
But the argument is this, okay? So the argument is about like the semantic and totally arbitrary and flexible nature of language. And it's about water, okay? Are you ready for it?
I'm actually not sure if I'm ready for this next level argument.
Okay. So imagine you have two people, right? It's me and it's you. The chat is like collectively a person. Wow, you're so handsome. Congratulations. And I'm like, hey, do you want this water bottle? And you don't trust me. So you're like, what's in this water bottle? Why are you giving it to me? And I'm like, oh, it's just water. Don't worry about it. I smile and hand you the water bottle, okay? And you're like, okay. And you drink the water bottle. All right? Now here's the thing, okay? Here's the trick. I lied to you. It's not just water. Inside that water bottle are actually several parts per million of trace minerals that get added to every water bottle produced by that company to promote teeth health. There's like a little bit of basic mineral additive to maintain proper flavor and dental health. Now, jokes aside, if I pointed that out to you, did I lie to you when I said it was just water?
Wow. Mind blown. Just to pause there and explain the obvious. There are multiple definitions for water. There's the scientific definition. Then there's drinking water. Water that is clean enough for people to drink. In normal circumstances, if you hand me a bottle of water, I wouldn't assume it's pure H2O, as I assume you're using the second definition.
No, nobody's ever like been said, here's a thing, but it's wrong because you didn't give the molecular composition of every atom in it. That's like really dumb, right?
Yes, that would be very dumb. Like this whole argument.
So, okay, imagine the same scenario over again, second time. You know, I hold out the water to you, and you're like, "What's in it?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's just water." Okay. And you drink it. And I did lie to you again. Okay. In that water is several parts per million of cyanide, a lethal amount actually, and you die. Now, did I lie to you?
Yes, because the assumption based on context is that we're talking about drinking water. If the water is poisonous, it no longer meets that definition.
Because it wasn't just whether or not it was water, it was whether it would serve the purpose of water. That's it. When people hear it's just water, they're not actually asking, is it the chemical water in its entirety? They're asking, does it serve the purpose of water? Is it functionally water? Will it do what I expect it to? It's shared communication. You're actually making assumptions on both ends, right? We do this all the time for like a ton of things, right?
I think it speaks volumes to the average Vaush fan that this needs explaining. It's like, oh, the moon doesn't actually disappear during the nighttime, it's actually just out of view. I know, and so does everybody else. Except you, apparently. It's like if I'm drinking lemonade and I ask you for a straw and you give me back a literal straw. It's like straw's just arbitrary. We're making assumptions on both sides. This is fascinating.
What flows through rivers? Water does. But like, not really. Water in a river is like 5% sediment, sometimes more. But we still say it's water because when we say it's river water or water flows through the river, you know what the other person means. But here's the other thing. If you were to bottle river water and give it to another person saying it's just water and they drank it and they spat it out because it's river water, you would have lied to them.
Because obviously that's another definition of water. A body of water, such as a sea, lake, river, or stream.
So it's water in the river, but it's not water in the water bottle, is it?
No, man, rats are outside, mice are inside.
Yo, but what if a mouse goes outside? Does it become a rat? And if a rat is in the house, is it a mouse?
I ain't never seen no mouse outside, though. That's what I'm saying.
That's because it's a rat, fool.
Hey.
What's that in the river? Water. True. What's this in the water bottle? Water. False. This is river water. I think this is remarkably interesting. There are no like firm lines anywhere here. It's just like an abstract language game. Now, with all of this being established, woman refers to gametes and hormones, and that's all it means? Really?
Finally, we get to the crux of this fucking stupid argument. And it was a meandering journey to get here. But this gets a little more interesting. There are different kinds of definitions. There are rigid definitions, and there are more cultural definitions. Now, I'll be borrowing from a YouTube channel called Innuendo Studios, because he does an excellent video on this.
Look, definitions come in a few flavors. Some are quite rigid. A prime number is just fundamentally different from other numbers. A number is either divisible by only itself and 1, or it isn't. They are an innate feature of the universe, and upon discovering them, the definition was self-evident. We got that one for free. On the other hand, the definition of, say, planet is not innate. A planet is a planet simply because we say so. We look at the natural world and we divide its contents into categories because it helps us understand what we're looking at. And while there is a logic to this, it is also always, to some degree or another, arbitrary. Pluto stopped being a planet because the more we understood about the solar system, the more thinking of Pluto as a planet made shit weird. So we changed how we thought about it. Now, if a prime number is a natural thing with a natural meaning, and a planet is a natural thing with a cultural meaning...
I'm gonna stop it there, because that's the most pertinent part to our discussion. But I really recommend checking out that video. He delves into the question of, what is art? The H2O definition of water is rigid. Something either is or isn't H2O, and it's measurable. But definitions like potable water or river water may vary because they're more cultural definitions. These definitions are a lot more arbitrary.
So water, a definitive molecular compound that can be observed in reality as an empirical thing, has a bunch of different definitions depending on its use and value and utility?
Imagine in an alternative universe, water only referred to pure H2O. And when we're talking about drinkable water, we call it drinking water. And when we're talking about river water, we call it river water. There would be literally no confusion here. The only reason Vaush is confused is because we use the same word, water, for these different types of definitions, whether we're talking about H2O, river water, or bottled water.
Water is a molecule. You can test scientifically whether something is water or not. It's not some arbitrary concept like, a woman refers to some things. No, water refers to water. That's what it means.
Yes, water has a non-arbitrary definition, but it also has arbitrary definitions, which you just explored. Woman isn't an arbitrarily made-up concept. It's based on nature, gametes, which you just mentioned earlier. You want it to be an arbitrary definition, like river water or drinking water is, but H2O is not arbitrary. And going back to his original debate, why did you say H2O is not water?
Maybe we could agree that water is H2O.
This isn't true.
Because of its rigid definition, H2O is always water. So why did you say that's not true? It still doesn't make any sense with all this context. If I handed you a bottle filled with pure H2O, there's no way you could argue that that's not water. Unless you're Vaush, of course, because he's a special kind of thinker.
And still, even with water, it can be this really contextual language game. But with woman, we're just supposed to believe it's it's biology and that's that, It's just this,
Sorry, but the biological definition of woman, like the H2O definition of water, is an innate part of the universe. But there also can be a cultural definition of woman. It's just a question of which is more useful in everyday life. I think the biological, scientific definition is more useful. If your definition of wolf includes this woman, I don't think it's a useful definition. In my eyes, a biological woman and a trans woman are different in so many ways that it feels wrong to equate them through words. And I especially don't like the idea of people being forced to equate them by law. And leftist ideology has gone so far that it's not just that they want them to use the same word, they want us to say that they are the same thing.